Hey, this is FAIR's Government Relations Director, R.J. Hauman. Thanks for joining us today. I'm joined by our Research Director, Matt O'Brien. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So we're coming to you on the other side of the government shutdown, obviously, that we talked about earlier in the week. Matt, what are your thoughts on Republicans, standing their ground and not giving in to unreasonable Democratic demands for a DACA amnesty?
Well, my feeling is it's about time. This has gone on in the past. The Democrats have wielded government shutdowns like a blunt instrument and attempted to blame the Republicans. But I think in this particular instance, the American public understands it's unconscionable for the Democratic Party to put the interest of 800,000 illegal aliens ahead of 320 million Americans.
Yeah, and I think many of you out there, and we've certainly noticed this in our many years working on this issue, is that the Democrats are just completely unreasonable. They're immigration maximalists. They're for open borders. They don't even come to the table from a reasonable position. They're negotiating in bad faith. So now going forward, obviously, to free up the government and end the shutdown, Majority Leader McConnell pledged that he'd open up debate for an immigration bill potentially by February 8th. So looking right now, at the Senate, you've got a couple competing working groups and proposals out there. Again, you have Senators Cotton, Perdue, Grassley, Tillis, and Lankford and Cornyn, who are more on the side of the American people in this debate. They want enforcement. They want changes to our legal immigration system. And then, however, you got the Gang of Six. You got Lindsey Graham, Jeff Flake, Dick Durbin, people like that. You remember them, Matt. Where are they from?
Well, they're from the land of let the border fence
right.
and gates down and admit everyone to the United States. And this is just the Gang of Eight bill
there you
all
go.
over again. Second verse, same as the first.
Absolutely. And these are the same players from that debate. Again, President Trump, part of the reason why he ascended to the presidency, obviously, is because his campaign simply rejected the whole Gang of Eight worldview and those kind of policies. It was a complete repudiation of Lindsey Graham's approach to immigration policy. Yet here they are. They're out there. They're calling this a bipartisan proposal. Matt, that's ridiculous. This isn't bipartisan.
No, it's absolutely absurd. The Democrats are not coming to the table in good faith. The fact is the Republicans don't need to have a negotiation at all. These are people who violated the law. The president could deport them all if he wished. The fact that he is being reasonable shows that he wants to govern the American way via compromise and via attempting to respond to the wishes of the American people. The Democrats want an ideological position, end of story, and they're not willing to make any reasonable compromises in order to get that. So the Republicans simply need to keep in mind the fact that they can win by simply not losing.
Correct. And again, we totally reject the notion, and when you're reading stories on immigration in the media, when you're talking to friends and family about it, again, the whole notion that this Gang of Six bill is either bipartisan or a compromise is ridiculous. Just because you have Republicans and Democrats in the room doesn't mean you have opposite ends of the spectrum in there. These guys are all pro-amnesty bedfellows. You basically have people negotiating with each other who agree with each other. That's not a negotiation. You're not coming from opposite ends of the spectrum. Now, again, if you actually had maybe a Tom Cotton in the room with Dick Durbin, then you have two ends of the spectrum, and then a compromise could come from that. But when Dick Durbin gets with somebody who agrees with him on every single issue and says they come to some bipartisan solution, just don't fall for that. So kind of get into the Gang of Six proposal. And again, we're encouraging all you out there, call your senators and just say, I do not support the Gang of Six Graham-Durbin proposal. Again, let's just kind of dive into it, and we're trying to educate you out there on this bill and just how absurd it is. Again, it's not a DACA fix. This is a comprehensive amnesty bill, a mass amnesty bill. Matt, so amnesty for millions of illegal aliens beyond the DACA population. This has the DREAM Act in there. This isn't a DACA fix.
No, it's the latest version of the DREAM Act, and the problem with that is it sends a clear message to the rest of the world that we're not going to enforce our immigration laws, and then it creates the chain migration problem, because however many people you amnesty, multiply that by several factors, and that's how many people you're actually going to wind up with.
Yeah, so you got the baseline with this is, there's nearly 800,000 DACA recipients under the DREAM Act language that's in here. You got about nearly 3.5 million illegal aliens. You know, it's not just people that are eligible for DACA or had DACA. People can age into this program. I mean, you'll have people swarming the border. There'll be a mass amount of fraud, of people trying to take advantage of this. Now, again, you talk about the chain migration effects. You know, these senators are acting like this legislation addresses chain migration. They shift around a couple of chain migration categories, and then they say, okay, these people cannot sponsor their parents, the ones who brought them here illegally, the ones who are actually at fault. You know, these people, they say, no fault of their own. But I think we all can agree that if somebody is at fault, it's the parents. But don't fall for the fact that, you know, they can't get sponsored via chain migration, because they get amnesty too. Matt, you want to touch on that?
Sure. Well, in the past, and we've done this before in 1986, it didn't work out very well, and it's primarily the reason we have the immigration problems that we have now. What happens is one group of people gets amnestied, and then you have the legislators talking about amnestying the next group. Meanwhile, all the advocates for open borders and for illegal aliens are filing lawsuits claiming that there were classes of people that were inappropriately left out of this. And, you know, in the main, I think this is a big Democrat plan to put this in the hands of the courts and in the hands of activist judges in the Ninth Circuit. And that's a problem for all of us.
Yeah. And the language, again, specifically says out there that the parents, you know, again, that they're not on a path to citizenship or anything, but they can renew work permits every 3 years. They never end. It's indefinite. I mean, they can stay here in perpetuity. So it's a complete amnesty of the parents. I mean, they will never leave. Even though they're not on a path to citizenship, they get to stay. They broke our laws. They put their children, in some cases, on treacherous journeys, putting them at danger to come here, and we're simply gonna reward them. And another component of this is, again, they're acting like it gets rid of the visa lottery program, obviously, that we've seen has significant security risks. We had several terrorist attacks just at the end of this last year that stemmed from our visa lottery system. Before I get into what this legislation does, Matt, can you know, this is right in your wheelhouse from your time in the federal government. Can you talk about the visa lottery system and just, I guess, its security loopholes and it's the whole, and how it's pretty much anti-American?
Well, the visa lottery program was a creation of Ted Kennedy, who, after he forced the 1965 Immigration Act, said that, well, that wasn't good enough. America was not going to get enough people from diverse countries. So he put into place this program that essentially has a lottery. It's like a bingo game.
Right.
Names all go into a big wheel. USCIS turns them, grabs them, and grants visas based on this. And supposedly this attracts people from countries that have a low representation in the United States. Of course, that's completely false. They get, you know, 20 to 40,000 applications from Belarus every year. From Iceland, they get 2 to 4,000 applications. Then you run into the problem that the standards for the program are low. You have to have a high school diploma, 2 years work experience, and the fact is that those are things that can easily be forged.
Right.
Then you run into the more serious problem that the vetting on these people is not done the way it is on people in most other categories. It's a simpler system, and it doesn't reveal who, as we've seen at the end of this past year, reveal who the troublemakers are, which is a danger to Americans. It's a public safety and a national security problem.
Right. No, and we thought this would be one of the most common sense things. You know, okay, you just get rid of the visa lottery system. All right, so what the Gang of Six bill does is they get rid of the visa lottery system, but they preserve the numbers. And what they do is they take half of the visa lottery. It's about 50,000 a year, I believe, and they make it they use 25,000 a year to give amnesty to TPS recipients. Now, TPS is obviously, it's a program called Temporary Protected Status. People who are here in the United States at the time of some strife or environmental cataclysm in their country, they can stay here. Now, the program has been, you know, renewed and countless times. It's not temporary. And this is an amnesty because a lot of these people that were here and got TPS protections came here illegally. They were here illegally. They weren't here on a student visa or something like it was really intended to. They were here illegally. They got protected. And now this is a backdoor amnesty for them. There's about 400,000 TPS recipients out there. So you can just tack that on to the number of all the DREAM Act people, the parents of the Dreamers. Again, this is a mass amnesty bill. And then what do the American people get in return? Next to nothing, okay? All this does is give you $1.6 billion as a down payment for President Trump's wall, when we all know it'll cost over $20 billion. That money will never come later on down the line. And then it slaps on, just some conditions to even get that money, all these reports and, bureaucratic red tape, man, that'll never get done. So again, we're just wanting to educate you guys on this bill, and don't be fooled when the media and talking heads out there are saying this is a bipartisan proposal. So again, make your voice heard out there. Call your senators and tell them you flatly reject the Gang of Six's approach to immigration right now. This isn't about DACA. This is just another opportunity for the pro-amnesty bedfellows in both chambers to ram another amnesty down our throats. That was flatly rejected in the election in 2016, and we're not going to stand for it. So again, make your voice heard. Again, for an easy way to contact your legislators, you just text FAIR, F-A-I-R, to 52886. Matt, thanks so much for joining me today, and thank you everybody out there for tuning in.